Hello, sisters. All right. This shirt is definitely too small for me. Like, I got it at Women's Festival like 5 years ago, and I like the thing, but it's too small. I think I should like cut this out and like sew it onto another shirt or vest or something. And I used to have this vest. Well, I still have it. That's like covered in like embroidery that I've done and a couple of things that I bartered with women. Um, like patches that are like paint stamped or whatever. That I bartered with women for stuff that I embroidered. But then like um the whole thing is like lesbian and gay liberation, and it's like all this like the first gay pride was a riot and all of this like stuff with gay men, and now I'm really at a point where I'm like, dude, that was like a lot of bullshit. Like I totally disagree with like the entire ethos of what's on that vest, so like I don't wear it anymore. The last time I wore it, I think, was Megan Murphy was having an event in Toronto, and the Toronto Public Library had like a community speaking. Oh, fuck, I forgot what it's called. There's like an official term for it. People could come in and depute about why they thought she shouldn't be there. And I wore that vest because I wanted it to look like, yo, I'm a fucking gay who supports the gays. And then I went up there and was like, freedom of speech, and also the Human Rights Tribunal like affirmed every single fucking thing that Megan Murphy said that got her like branded as a TERF and whatever. And I wanted to wear the vest to show like I'm a lesbian who's saying this stuff. I had to have like bodyguards escort me out of there. That was like a lot of fun. Not bodyguards, like were they cops? I don't fucking know who they were. But they were like, yeah, I think they must have been cops. I don't remember. This was like a while ago. But anyway, that's the last time I wore that vest. So, anyway, I've been working on embroidery stuff. Where's the other stuff? Oh, it's under my pile of books so that it's flat. Been starting like some. Wow, Mike, focus, please. Camera focus. Okay, well. Yeah, I've been starting embroidering some stuff. Maybe I'll make a new vest. Okay, the book. Let's talk about the book. I hope you're all having a good morning. I have tea and water today because I drank so much fucking water yesterday. All right. So you might have noticed yesterday while I was reading, I stopped to take pictures of stuff. That was on purpose. Like, because I can't book when I was doing the last book and I was highlighting things on my iPad, then I could like just go through the highlights into the discussion. Obviously, I can't do that here. I don't want to be writing in this book, and I don't have like 1,000 bookmarks to put in, so I took some photos. Okay. This is actually from the prologue, not the first chapter, but we didn't do a discussion of the prologue, so I'm just going to throw it in here. Anung says, Stormy Delivery said Stonewall was a movement, not a riot. Thank you, Anung. Okay. The reason that this paragraph caught me was because we just finished reading Intercourse by Dworkin. In Intercourse by Dworkin, she talks a lot about how she doesn't really use the term gender that much in that book. But she actually discusses gender a lot, because what she talks about a lot is women and men hyper differentiating each other from each other, right? So, for example, women need to look servile to reinforce that men are dominant, right? And that applies not most of what Dworkin was discussing was actual behavior or very specific like physical acts, right? In this book, it's the same concept, gender, the hyper differentiation to reinforce the different, like the power difference, but she's discussing it more in terms of obviously physical appearance and then later social behavior, but not in social behavior specific to sex acts or the social behaviors that lead to sex acts so much, because the last 2 chapters of this book are called Emotion and Ambition. Anyway, so I'm going to read this paragraph. It is fashionable in some quarters to describe the feminine and masculine principles as polar ends of the human continuum, and to sagely profess that both polarities exist in all people. Sun and moon, yin and yang, soft and hard, active and passive, etc., may indeed be opposites, but a linear continuum does not illuminate the problem. Femininity, in all its contrivances, is a very active endeavor. What, then, is the basic distinction? The masculine principle is better understood as a driving ethos of superiority, designed to inspire straightforward, confident success, while the feminine principle is composed of vulnerability, the need for protection, the formalities of compliance, and the avoidance of conflict. In short, an appeal of dependence and goodwill that gives the masculine principle its romantic validity and its admiring applause. This also, to me, now that I've reread the paragraph, made me think of like the Disney concept, right? I have had discussions with rad femmes about this in the past, but not very often. This idea of like what is like romance, right? This also kind of reminds me of like Marilyn Frye's essays, like her lesbian separatist essays, where she talks about, you know, women being brainwashed into like the heterosexual paradigm. So this idea of like, oh, women need help, they need support, and like the perfect man who wants to help and support you, who lives to help and support you, who lives to be dependable. That's like the ideal situation for any man and women. You know, like this, like she said, the yin and the yang, like the soft and the hard, the like dependable and the dependee. Like, this whole thing is ingrained on so many levels that it starts with like fucking fashion, you know. Um, so I don't know. I've seen a lot of, not a lot. I've seen a few rad femmes in recent years really criticizing the whole like Disney concept of like a Prince Charming, you know, that there's a perfect man out there for every woman who's going to make her feel whole and happy. Okay. I'm just gonna go to the page because this picture is really gross. Like, it's not a good picture. I mean, page 40. Okay, this hit me really in the feels, like personally, because I have like very distinct memories of my breasts growing in, and I have very distinct memories of how that made me feel. And I'm gonna read you the paragraph now. Although they are housed on her person, from the moment they begin to show, a female discovers that her breasts are claimed by others. Parents and relatives mark their appearance as a landmark event. Schoolmates take notice. Girlfriends compare. Boys zero in. Later, a husband, a lover, a baby expect a proprietary share. No other part of the human anatomy has such semi public, intensely private status, and no other part of the body has such vaguely defined custodial rights. One learns to be selectively generous with breasts. This is the girl child's lesson. And through the breast iconography she sees all around her, she comes to understand that breasts belong to everybody, but especially to men. It is they who invent and define and refine the myth, who discuss breasts publicly, who criticize their failings as they extol their wonders, and who claim to have more need and intimate knowledge of them than a woman herself. Okay, I have so many fucking thoughts. The first thought, okay, I was really, really skinny when I was a kid, like I was anorexic, and like I remember so many specific interactions with my mom, my grandmother, and one of my music teachers, where they were like, "Oh, you're so pretty, like you could be a model or whatever." And I was in ballet, so that was like basically, you know, the same mentality of like super skinny body good. Um And then I remember when I started getting breasts, they didn't like talk about my boobs, but they talked about how I was like becoming more grown up and whatever. And I definitely was in that category of all my friends had like training bras and I didn't. And so I remember getting these like when I went shopping for underwear, you could get these like sets. They almost look like a bikini where it was like on like a plastic hanger where it was like underwear with like a training bra attached that like went together. And I think for me, not only it's kind of hard for me to remember a lot of childhood, to be honest with you guys. I think for me, part of it was that I wanted to blend in with my friends because, like, when you were changing for gym class or like when you were training for like swimming at summer camp or something, like you want to be wearing the same shit that other girls are wearing. But also part of it was like I wanted to be like covered up. Like I didn't have boobs yet, but I was like the moment they get here, I need to have like something covering that shit, you know? Anyway, I have like very specific memories of this kind of stuff. Comparing with their girlfriend schoolmates. Oh my god. There was this one girl in my elementary school named Lydia. How old was I? I think I was in the 4th grade. I was like 11 or 12. And she was very petite, like compared to me. I was one of the tallest girls. And she was very petite and she had like I don't know what size her breasts were, but she had the biggest breasts in our class or in our grade. And the boys like teased her about it. Like it wasn't super malicious. I'm not trying to defend them. I'm just saying I've known a lot of like I've talked now as an adult to a lot of girls who were told like outright as like 11-year-olds to like, you know, get on their knees and like suck dudes' dicks or whatever. Like it wasn't like that. But like a lot of them made comments about it and she was really self-conscious about it. And I just like have such a specific memory of being with her at recess on the pavement and the boys were playing kickball or whatever and her kind of like telling me like this is getting like too much. Like I just want to like be normal and like not think about it and like I can never not think about it because everybody's always like looking at them or talking about it and she was like 11 or something. Anyway, this idea that I'm going to just read this phrase again. No other part of the human anatomy has such semi-public, intensely private status, and no other part of the body has such vaguely defined custodial rights. I'm gonna like skip ahead. She comes to understand that breasts belong to everybody, but especially to men. Like, the term I've used to discuss my feelings when my breasts started to grow when I was younger is alienation. And I do think that's an accurate term, but I think it's like too superficial. Like, when my breasts started to come in, and I noticed like older adult men looking at me, and like, this is not to like victim blame or whatever, but just to give context. My mom made me and my sister dress like very modestly, I guess is the word. Like we never had like low cut shirts, we never had like push up bras, like nothing like that. So in my mind, because I knew that that's how I dressed, the fact that there were men like leering at me, I was like, what else could I do to not be leered at when I'm already wearing like the most like covering non-attention getting clothes I could wear, you know? Um, I never actually got groped or anything. I think part of that is because I didn't start going on the subway, like, or public transit, like spaces where you were like in close quarters with people, um, until I was like 14, and by then I was always in groups. Anyway, uh, but yeah, I remember when men started to like leer at me and look at me, or because of the way I dressed and the way I behaved, like I was never like one of the girls by the time I got to like 13, 14. Like I'm not the kind of girl that the other boys were like, "Oh, everyone wants to date her," or like one of the girls where they were like, "Ooh, which boy do you want to date?" Like I was never like in that sphere. I was like nerdy and quirky and weird. Do you know what I mean? But I remember the attention the other girls in my classes were getting because of their bodies, Or like I remember when I was 15, this one girl got like a belly button piercing, and oh my god, she got it at some sketchy place, like for cash, with some note that she wrote that she said was like from her parents, and it got infected, and it was like a whole thing. But I remember her, like, she was so skinny, and like she took off her shirt to like show us. Um and I remember thinking, like, okay, like you have like the perfect Victoria's Secret bra, like your breasts are like in proportion with like your waistline, like everything about you looks perfect. And like you have a boyfriend, and then like hearing all the other, like hearing the boys making comments about her body, like I just applied those things to myself, even though like they weren't being applied to me directly. Anyway, my point is, I don't think alienation is enough of a word to describe how I felt about my breasts. Like I really think reading this, it felt like they were something that didn't belong to me. It felt like they were like public property, like they were there for the purpose of men to look at them. Because like when you really think about it, for my purpose, like as a whatever 14-year-old or something, what purpose did my breasts serve me at that time? Right? Like she also talks about in chapter 1, um the purpose of breasts is to breastfeed babies, right? And then like their secondary purpose, I guess, is like sensory, like for sex stuff. And um in our society you don't see a lot of women breastfeeding. It's not like when people think of boobs in North American society, the first thing they think of is like men's eroticizing of them, right? It's not breastfeeding, at least to me. I guess it depends if you were in some smaller subculture, like if you were Mennonite or something. I mean, I am a Mennonite. If you were like Amish or something, um, maybe that wouldn't be the case. But I don't know. I think I really did feel like my boobs served a purpose for men, and they didn't serve a purpose for me, and so they weren't really a thing that was a part of me at a young age. I think that's a more like in-depth way of describing how I felt about it after reading this, at least. All right. Oh yeah. Let's remember says, I'd say the main purpose of breasts are to support the female body, and they are body and mind they are a part of. Yeah, that's interesting. Um, because I also think of, I don't know if any of you have heard about this like body neutrality movement. So like body positivity, it's like kind of like the sex positivity thing where it's like everything about you is so awesome, and it's like basically what that means is like how can we fetishize everything? And if we can fetishize it, then we can assign a positive value to it. For example, you're fat, which like I'm comfortable talking about this because I think I'm pretty fat. You're fat. So, oh, but there's men who think that's really sexy. Therefore, the fact that you're fat is awesome. So you fetishized it and thereby assigned it a positive value, right? So, I don't know the origins of the body neutrality movement, but basically they were like assigning positive value to like things that are viewed as negatives doesn't actually give you like an internal sense of goodness about it. It just like it changes your like external locus of control about it. This is not their word. This is how I think about it. Um, so making everything sexy doesn't really like change any fucking thing. Um, so the body neutrality movement is like I have big thighs. They're good because they hold up my body. They're good because they help me walk around. Like it's like what technical purpose does that thing serve? That's why it's good. Something like breast, the body neutrality movement would say, my breasts are good. Maybe I'm not breastfeeding. Maybe I never will breastfeed, but my breasts are good because they're a part of my body. That's why they're good. Like a very like basic position on it rather than like eroticizing or fetishizing it. Um yeah. Lavender says I've heard it's worse in white culture than it is in black culture. Breasts seem to be more of a big deal to white men, especially older white men. Interesting. I wouldn't really know, to be honest with you. Um, Yeah, okay, and then the last thing about this paragraph. So it is they, men, who invent and refine the myths, who discuss breasts publicly and who criticize their failings as they extol their wonders, and who claim to have more neat and intimate knowledge of them than a woman herself. Yeah, oh, okay. Lavender says booties are a bigger deal in Black culture. Yeah, okay. That I do know about. um so this idea that men know more about boobs than women, I have this other specific memory. I must have been 12 at the time. Just telling you guys these things, it's like I realize how young I was. Like fuck, 12 is so young. Um my boobs had kind of started to grow in a bit, and I was my closest friends. I think at this point I kind of had two friend groups, but my closest friends, who had been my closest friends for most of elementary school, this was the year I went off to junior high. Um, they were like the two school bullies who were boys. I don't remember how we came about the topic, because I remember them discussing sex stuff at that age. Like now I realize they must have been watching porn and they thought it was funny that they knew about it and I didn't know about it, so they were like discussing it in, like with me on purpose, because I was like, "What are you talking about?" all the time. Um, and they were talking about nipples, and they were like, but I don't remember how it happened, but I was like, they don't always face straight forward. Like sometimes they kind of face out to the side or something. And they were like, "How the fuck would you know? Like we've seen way more of them than you." And I was like, "I mean, I have boobs, so maybe I would know." And they were like, "No, you don't know." And I was like, "Okay." And at that time, that interaction made me feel really uncomfortable, and I couldn't really put my finger on why. Um, I wonder how differently these interactions would have impacted me if I had had like an older woman in my life that I could talk to about these things, even like a teenager in my life that I could have talked to about these things, like an older cousin or something. But like now that I look back, it's like I already felt disgusted with my body. I already felt like uncomfortable with like the physical sensation of having these parts of my body growing. And then to top it all off, I had boys telling me that they knew more about my body than I did, you know? And I had no one around to tell me, like, "Oh, no, like, yeah, boobs come in all shapes and sizes, like, they don't know anything." And also, like, porn, like, they're watching porn, which I didn't realize. But, like, the fact that they're watching porn is giving them, like, a very narrow view of what, like, the female body is like or whatever. Like, it's not any reflection of what women actually are like, you know? Um, Anung says having elders to guide you is crucial. I completely agree. Um, Lest You Remember says the handing down of information is so important. That's why it is sabotage in every generation. I completely agree with that too. Like, I think a lot of what we're seeing with TIFFs is like they enter a mental crisis based in ignorance combined with like fetishism. Like, I think at this point in history, we are at like an all-time high of girls knowing at a very young age that their bodies are fetishized, of knowing explicitly. Like, there's so many specific sexual terms that I learned what that term meant before I had ever, like, seen porn, before I had ever known that there was, like, different ways to have sex. Like, I learned terms that exclusively apply to anal sex before I knew that anal sex was a thing. Like girls understand fetishism and objectification at such a young age, while they don't know anything about their reproductive system yet. Like the amount of girls who think like your period is when you just bleed. That's it. They don't know like the entire process of what it does to your body, right? The amount of girls who don't really understand like puberty, for example. This is like a great example of that. when we see that, like, in the last couple of months with all this stuff going on in the US, people blocking pediatric transition in different mostly southern US states, a lot of people have been saying you're forcing kids to go through like a forced puberty or something. This term forced puberty, it's like it's fundamentally showing us they don't know what puberty is. Puberty is not, oh, you got boobs and your uterus got bigger or something. That's not what puberty is. That is a factor in puberty. It's also like the fusing of your bones and like the growth of your brain and like all of your organs get bigger. Like it's every fucking part of your entire body. Like the amount women don't know fuck all about their bodies. Their mothers and grandmothers are not talking to them about it. What do they know? They know all this porn shit. That's all they know. So you see, you have these tiffs who are scared of their own bodies because there's so much ignorance about it and mystery about it. And then at the same time, the only concrete knowledge they have about their bodies is this objectified, fetishized, over the top pornified, creepy shit that scares them. Imagine being in that state of mind. You don't know anything about how your body actually functions. And to top it all off, definitely you don't know how to protect your body from harm in a sexual setting. And you definitely don't know how to protect your mind from harm in a sexual setting. And you definitely don't know how to, like, gain sexual pleasure for yourself, right? But all you know is like how men want to use you and hurt you. Of course, they want to take some kind of control over their body. Of course, they want to escape that. Like, have you seen oh fuck, what do you call? I've talked about this type of surgery on my, body nullification. Is that what it's called? Sex nullification, something. That surgery where they want to make you look a Barbie, where you have nothing down there. I've read multiple articles, like I had to stop reading because it made me so upset, about women who had that done to them, and literally, they're one. They say it verbatim. There's like articles that are like, why are people getting this surgery and why is this surgery so great? And in the article, women are like, I don't want to be penetrated and now I can't. And they're like, yay for this surgery. Like people writing the articles are like, that's why the surgery is so great. And I'm like, these women don't have the knowledge to know that they can be self-resilient, to know that they can have women backing them up, to know that they can survive shit. They're like in a panic, in a blind panic, trying to exert any kind of control over their body because they're in such a like a black pit of knowledge, and all they know is like the pornified shit. A surgical chastity belt, exactly, a nun. Like it's horrific. Anyway, we've kind of gotten off topic, but not really. A couple days ago on Twitter, I saw this tiff who was doing a TikTok who was showing the ah fuck, I forgot. My brain is not really turned on today. Who got like testicle pumps for like an inflatable phallus, right? There was like a tiff on TikTok showing like the little plastic things that they put in like the like testicle pouches or whatever to like make the inflatable phallus or whatever. And she was like smiling and talking about how this is like the newest version and so it doesn't have the issues that the older versions don't have, and like how it's made out of like surgical grade rubber or whatever and blah blah blah, and like this is what her surgeon's going to input into her body soon because she's getting like the inflatable phallus or whatever. And every single reaction of these women on Twitter, every single one of them was like a puke emoji, was like um was like laughing at this woman, was saying how gross she is, was saying how dumb she is, was saying how her body is going to be so disgusting and deformed, how she's mutilating herself. And I'm like, what the actual fuck is wrong with you people? Where's your compassion? Like, this woman is like destroying her fucking body. She is destroying her sexuality. And like, doubtless, if she's destroying her sexuality, she doesn't have a positive relationship with her body in a sexual like there she never had a positive sexual relationship with her body at all in the first place, right? And you're laughing at her about it. You're like posting puking gifs about it. Like, I get that I mean, obviously, I also have like negative feelings towards the concept of a penis. But the difference between a woman doing this and doing the nullification surgery, the as a nun calls it, the surgical chastity belt, is not that different. It's the same fucking thing. This is just like a more complicated version of that. Okay? This is just a version of that where the woman thinks that she's going to, at the end, have some kind of capability for sexual pleasure. And it's like a fucking lie because it's just going to be painful or numb or something. Like, it's just so disturbing to me. Like, if a woman was getting a labiaplasty because she thought that her body was gross and that's the way that she could like have a less gross body, and the labiaplasty turned into a disaster and she's now in pain forever or has urinary issues or something, these same group of women would feel sorry for this woman. But because this woman is trying to masculinize her body in an effort to do a similar thing for similar reasons, like because she took a different path for the same motivation, she deserves ridicule is just like so fucking upsetting to me. Well, no, I know. I mean, lest we forget. Okay. Um okay, there was this paragraph in here. I totally agree, Anung. Anung says young people don't understand the surgery is physical trauma. They have magical thinking about plastic surgery. Yeah. I mean, so we have celebrities like I don't know who, like Michael Jackson or Kim Kardashian or something, who I don't really know anything about pop culture, who got plastic surgery and it's like, oh, it's no big deal. Right? Currently, you have like all of the K-pop stars, like basically most of the big celebrities out of Asia are all having plastic surgery. Um there was an entire generation of TV that had like what was that show called, Nip and Tuck, and like TLC shows and stuff of people getting plastic surgery and like it's no big deal, right? And they truly think that like, oh, just like a couple of snips here and there, it's just a little bit of stuff being moved around, it's no big deal. Um no, Anung, they do show them. Um like they're so brainwashed. Like Carol, who's been on this channel before a couple times. She has her own YouTube channel also. Um I'll figure out what her YouTube channel is. She got to the point, she's talked about this um on her YouTube channel, I think. She's definitely tweeted about it. Hey useless. I feel weird calling you that. Hey strawberry. um she's got to the point where she was in the surgeon's office for a consultation. They showed her like videos and diagrams of like what the phalloplasty was like. And she was like, at that time, I saw that and thought that's a good idea. That's what I want. Now, in retrospect, she was like, anybody who can look at those videos and look at those diagrams and not be freaked out and not realize what a physical trauma it's going to inflict on their body and not be scared by it, that's like proof that they shouldn't be able to consent to the surgery, that they're not in a good state of mind. No, Anung, like there's YouTube videos of people getting like pelvic pull through, like the penile inversion, the most like now the most common penile inversion surgery method, and like the Tims watch it. Like it is magical thinking. Like it's like super magical thinking to be able to look at the physical act of it being done and to think this is going to be a good thing. Okay, anyway, we've definitely gotten off topic. There was this there was this paragraph that I wanted to read, but I guess I didn't photograph it, so I'm not going to find it. I'll just summarize what I remember of it. Oh, useless strawberry says it's also a torture kink for some, especially among men. It's not even torture. It's like, okay, so you know how Andrea Long Chu talks about how, like, the asshole is a universal vagina through which anyone can experience womanhood or whatever. And what Andrea Long Chu means and is brutally honest about is that, like, being a female from the male perspective is to be someone who is fucked and subjugated, and that if a man has an asshole, he can experience that, therefore he can experience femalehood. That's what they mean, right? So to Tim's, at least to like most of the AGPs, the concept of getting like the penile inversion, to them they view it as like the ultimate act of humiliation, right? The ultimate act of emasculation. And that for them that's like a sexual thing, because to be humiliated and emasculated is to become a female. Like it's not like an idea to them, it's like a physical excitement for them. Like there are definitely Tims who like masturbate to the idea of having their penises like cut off or flipped inside out or whatever. Like it's not, yeah. I wouldn't say it's a torture kink. I'd say it's like a humiliation, emasculation kink. Anyway, okay. Enough about Tims. No more talking about Tims. We're talking about female bodies. Okay. There was a I thought I took a picture of it. There was a actually maybe I took a picture of it. No, because that was the prologue. No, I don't have a picture of it then. There was a paragraph that talked about when is the first time a girl looks in the mirror and tries to see how big are my breasts, how flat is my stomach, how big are my hips, who tries to turn this way and that, like to contort her body. Yeah, she used the term contortionist poses in the mirror to try to get the perfect angle, that the boobs look good, the stomach looks flat, and the face looks good all at the same time. You know? She's like, at what age does a girl start doing that? And who is she comparing herself to? And I don't know, that like really hit home for me. And I also, just putting it into historical context, she talks about you know, the evolution of the corset and the brassiere and all that stuff, and how it was supposed to make a woman look a certain way. But those women in those eras, like before the I don't know, when did women start like actually having access to the porn that their husbands were watching? Like the 70s or the 60s, probably, right? Before the 60s, I can't imagine that there were many teenage girls who thought, oh, my mom wears her bodice like this. My aunt wears her, you know, flattens her breasts to look like a flapper like this, and went into the mirror, took off all of her clothes, looked at herself naked, and thought, I wonder if my body measures up to what men expect from a naked woman, right? Like, I think back to like the 1880s and like the kind of corsets that women were wearing back then, and the kind of the petticoats and the layers of all that shit that they were wearing. And for them, the most insecure they were about their bodies was how it looked dressed, because they didn't have an internal expectation. They didn't have a communal expectation of what men expected them to look like when they were naked, aside from like, don't be like skinny, don't look like you're poor, right? Yeah, like Leslie Remember says women didn't even shave until the 1940s, right? Yeah. Oh my god, I read this historical fiction book and I fucking loved this series so much, the Bloody Jack series. If you've read it, I should do a rant video about that book, that series. It makes me so fucking angry. They're in the She was in the Trafalgar. What year was that war? I don't know. Anyway, my point is, this book was set in like the 1800s. No, yeah, it starts in like 1790 or something, and she ends up getting a butler who shaves her, and I'm like, what the fuck? Anyway, whatever. Never mind. And then her boyfriend, who she's been in love with for like 7 books, like beats her in the street because she's a slut because some boy kissed her, and I'm like, what the fuck is wrong? Anyway. Never mind. That series makes me very angry. I was discussing it on Reddit with some people last night. Yeah. So my point is, I think the whole concept of girls looking in the mirror at their naked bodies and wondering if they fit the ideal is pretty contemporary. Um, and it's kind of iatrogenic because it goes along with the access to diets and it goes along with the access to um, plastic surgery. Like 99% of women are never going to get plastic surgery, but they can still look in the mirror and think, "Oh, my nose is too big. Oh, like I have a double chin. Like, oh, my I wish I could have lipo. My hips are too big or whatever, you know?" Anyway, I'm not trying to say that this is like women destroying their bodies for a beauty ideal is new because we know it's not. Look at women with makeup destroying their skin and giving themselves cancer, or um, women with like paints, like I don't know. Women have done a lot of horrible shit to their bodies over the centuries, obviously, have destroyed their bodies for beauty standards. I'm just saying that I think for it to come from such a young age and to be like the naked form is very different than it was like 100 or 200 years ago. Um, okay. What was the next thing? We're going to wrap this up soon because yeah, lead in makeup to whiten the skin and arsenic in makeup. Like, there's a lot of really horrible shit that they put in makeup. And oh, there was some eye drops to make your eyes. What did it do to your eyes? It made your pupils look bigger, which they thought made women look more like innocent or I don't fucking know, something. It was belladonna drops, which is a fucking poison, which made women go fucking blind. Women made themselves blind so that their irises could be bigger, our pupils could be bigger, so that they could look more attractive to men. Like, yeah, women have been destroying their bodies. Thank you. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. Obviously, there is no such thing as an average breast, but the amazing variety is something that Western civilization chooses to deny, for it is the containerized breast that greets the world and imposes a uniform shape that is considered most highly erotic and fashionable in a given era. Most women cannot help but think that the shape of their breasts and the line of their clothes can be improved by a standardized bra. Blouses with side darts used to leave no doubt where the nipples should point. Yeah, I always found that so weird that there was like clothes that like containerized. I think she just means that it's like I don't know. That's the word that she used to mean that it's like a compartmentalized separate from the rest of the female body and compartmentalized separate from like the reality of what having a breast is like or what breasts are like, communally. Um Arguments in favor of the bra, however, go well beyond the concerns of fashion, or rather, they combine the aesthetic with other considerations, echoing the protests once articulated by fervent tight lacers. Without a secure foundation, the chest muscle will hurt from the strain. The breast will flop shamelessly. The jiggle is a source of discomfort. When the nipples point down, they look droopy and sad. A sagging breast is a sign of an old lady. One breast is bigger or lower or different from the other. Going braless is brazen and sloppy. Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts about this. Okay, I haven't worn a bra in 7 years. I own one. I bought one for a specific reason, a specific thing I was going to, because I thought it would make me feel less self conscious. And I put it on once, and I was like, I can't believe I spent money on this. And then I think I gave it away or donated it or something. I don't know. I regret spending money on that. Anyway, my point is, the only issue I ever had with not wearing a bra was nipples. And so first I kind of did what I used to do. I have like 3 eras of I have 4 eras in my life of what I did with my boobs. Started wearing like training bras or like, double A cup bras when I was like 13 or something. Then I became like started identifying as a TIFF, started wearing like sports bras that were one size too small, or like I would cut up leggings or tights, like the top part, and make like my own binders and stuff. And then I would wear like a tank top and then like a size small shirt with like a size large shirt on top, like layering. Then I did get a binder when I was 17. And I think I wore it for almost 2 years. I wore it for a year. I can't remember. I have to look at my older videos. Like, it's been a long time since I thought about this, like, in terms of time. Anyway, I wore a binder for, like, let's say a little over a year. That sounds about right. I wore a binder for a little over a year, and I really fucked my rib cage and my muscles, my diaphragm and everything. I had to stop wearing it. Then after that, I still kind of wanted to not draw attention to my breasts, so I would wear, like, a tank top, a size medium shirt, and, like, a size extra large shirt on top to, like, have many layers that were doing different things to kind of obscure my chest. Then one day, after a recital, one of my classmates was like, "Why do you always wear 3 shirts?" Like, I took off my dress clothes to put on, like, regular clothes because we were going out for dinner or something, and he was like, "Why do you always wear, like, 3 shirts?" And I was like, um, "I don't know, like, I feel like I should, like, cover up my body or something." I don't remember exactly what I said, but I basically was like, "This is what I feel like I should be doing." And he was like, "You should just wear 1 shirt." And I was like, "Oh." So then I started and I was like, "Oh, it's, like, not that bad, it's no big deal." Anyway, that was, like, 5 5 or 6 years ago. Like, that was, like, a year after I stopped wearing a binder, maybe 2 years after I stopped wearing a binder. Um, well, that too, where I lived was very, very cold. Um, like, yeah, very fucking cold. Like, -40 in the winter, which is where Celsius and Fahrenheit meet. So it doesn't matter what country you're from, you should know what that means. Anyway, so I stopped wearing it, but then I felt kind of self-conscious about my nipples showing all the time. And I literally have had, like, family members who I don't really see my family members that often. Like, I have some really close friends that I consider my family, but my actual family I don't see that often. Um, I had family members who were like, "Can you please wear a bra?" Or who would, like, we would be in the store and they'd be like, "Yo, why don't you pick out a sports bra? Like, I'll buy you a sports bra." There was a while when I was living with a specific family member a few years ago, like, during COVID, where I actually started wearing sports bras just because that person was uncomfortable with, like, seeing my nipples. But eventually I was like, I literally went up to this person and I was like, "Yo, I don't care if you're uncomfortable with it. Like, you have nipples, I have nipples, like, your mom had nipples, my mom had nipples, like, the dog has nipples, everyone has fucking nipples. Like, who cares?" And after that, I was just like, I don't care. So it's been like a learning curve of not giving a shit. What was my point? I had a point with all this. Oh yeah, also, okay. Yeah. Um. Also, I just want to, like, disclaimer for the whole, like, bra thing. So I think bras are bullshit. They hurt your back. They hurt your body, like your shoulders. They hurt your rib cage. They actually make the muscles of your chest weaker. Like, there's scientific data to prove that now. There was a study out of France, I think it was published a year ago-ish, that basically was like, I cannot believe they spent money on this. Like, I cannot fucking believe it. And the way, like, you know how media covers scientific studies, right? It was, like, really, like, sexualized. So I don't remember what the actual parameters or, like, target of the study was, but they found that not wearing a breast doesn't make your boobs droopy or saggy or whatever. It actually makes the muscles of your chest stronger and they, like, hold up your breasts better. Whereas, like, wearing a bra, like, makes you not have to use these muscles, so these muscles become, like, useless, so then your boobs sag more or something like that. Anyway, I was like, why are people spending money studying this and not being like, what are the impacts of, like, bras on, like, the breathing of women or, like, the back pain of women or something? But, you know, that's way too practical. So I don't give a shit anymore. Like, I literally don't give a shit. Everyone has nipples. End of story. Like, and I get that it's like a pretty blasé attitude. Like I said, it took me years to get to that point. I'm not trying to say you should feel that way or like shame you if you don't feel that way. I'm just saying that's where I'm at. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. We've been discussing this for almost an hour. This is one last paragraph. Okay. I'm going to read this 2 paragraphs back to back, and then we're going to start reading the book, okay? How ironic that the sight of a mother breastfeeding her baby is unnerving to many of the same people who like to see or to show some cleavage in a dinner dress. In a curious reversal, the suckling infant actually becomes the embarrassing stand-in for the adult male lover. The nipple tease is the historic basis for the décolletage in fashion. A certain amount of exposure is sexy, but an accidental display of the areola is crudely beyond the pale. It is still considered rather risqué in some quarters to go braless, not necessarily because of the jiggle and bounce, but because nipples have a spunky way of asserting themselves according to their own agenda. Nipples in lactation appear to be a problem, yet nipples and milk ducts are really what breasts are all about. Not surprisingly, although the erectile tissue is present, masculine sexuality has rarely featured or even admitted its own nipple responsiveness as a source of erogenous pleasure. When and if it does, will men grow shy about going shirtless? The little boy who draws 2 dark, angry circles on the poster of a fully clothed woman has already absorbed society's lesson. The nipples on his chest are invulnerable and sexless, but a girl's are shameless and dirty. And the nursing mother, suffused with sensual feeling when the child is at her breast, may wonder if her response is wrong or indecent. After decades of frantic obsession, breasts evidently were such a thoroughly colonized province of masculine sexuality that the sight of a braless woman on the street in the late 1960s could inspire a strong negative reaction. The hoots and catcalls eventually subsided, but the initial emotion was something akin to rage. It was as if men had come to believe that taking off a brassiere somehow was their right and privilege. Understandably, many women also shared the point of view that a braless woman was deliberately provoking dangerous attention. In discussions of rape, one heard, well, what do these young girls expect when they go around braless? Okay. The first paragraph reminds me of being in high school, and like there was always 1 or 2 female teachers who, like, I don't know what kind of bras they were wearing, but like you could see their nipples sometimes, and like the boys would always joke about it. And the girls would be like, "Oh, well, like, this is the kind of bra I wear. Like, she should wear that kind of bra," or something. Like, just the discussion of it as if it was like this part of this woman's body is like an acceptable topic of discussion for everyone to make judgments about, which is like so weird. Like, it's just so strange. It's not like, I don't know. Also, just okay. I don't know if this is like actually a new thing. I doubt it's a new thing, but in the last couple of months, there's been more public international discussions of women in Arab countries, in Muslim countries, being like gang raped or gang like mobbed and murdered in the streets. There's been a couple of these in the last couple years. Like the one I'm thinking about that was the most well known was that one in Egypt. I forgot everyone whose names was involved, but the woman who was killed was a student at the University of Alexandria, I think, in Egypt. And she was just like walking from class to the library or something, and like some dude attacked her. Anyway, a lot of men, their reaction to this stuff happening is, well, what do these women expect to happen when they're trying to take off their hijabs. What does that actually have to do with the women in question who have been murdered and gang mobbed in the streets? Nothing, because most of them, or almost all of them, had been hijabis wearing their hijabs in these Muslim countries. But it's the exact same mentality of like, if you expose any part of your body, you're telling us that it's like it's our right to like physically access it and like act upon that part of your body. And it's also like that still doesn't make any sense, because it's like, because she's showing her hair, you have the right to rape her, or like it just doesn't. Anyway, so this is the same mentality of like, your role as a female is to cover up your entire body and be ashamed of it and preserve it for the one man who has the right to access you, right? Anyway, I just wanted to point out that like she wrote this book in 1983, and she's mostly talking about the mentality of the 70s, obviously. And that here in 2023 we have men making the exact same arguments. Um, every couple of years in Canada, like I'd say like every 5 years in Canada, there's some brother or uncle or cousin who like honor kills his sister or niece or something in Canada because she took off the hijab. And I'm like, it's the same fucking thing. You took off that thing that only a man has a right to take off. You stopped showing how ashamed and scared you are. Men can't fucking stand that shit. You don't have a right to your own body. I just wanted to point out that like the mentality hasn't really changed. Scam, can you be more specific about this? Scam says, I read that in countries where women are allowed to show more of their body, there is less sexual harassment. I recently talked to a woman who spent most of COVID in was it Colombia? I want to say she was in Colombia. She spent most of COVID in Colombia. Like she got there at the beginning of COVID, and then she ended up basically stuck there. And she said that it was very normalized for men to like sexually harass women on the streets, but in a way, like this is I don't necessarily agree with all this, but this is what she told me. She was like, in a way it was good because it was kind of practical, because the women knew what the men thought and knew the mentality of the men. It wasn't like in Canada where they all pretend that they're respectful, so you don't really know what they're thinking. That was interesting to me. And she also said that it kind of gave women a bit of like a backbone about it because they were like used to it. So like if a man crossed whatever their boundary was, they were more like, it was more normal for them to like kind of give him some shit back or something. Again, I don't know if I agree with all this, but this is what she said. And so she was like, it's very different than in Canada, where like if a man starts saying sexual shit to you on the street, um, you're like taken aback by it and you don't really know how to react to it because it's not like normal. It's not like an everyday occurrence. Anyway, I have like a lot of complicated thoughts about what she told me, but that's what she said to me. Anang says, people used to say, if something is sacred, you cover it. If something is for sale, you put it on display. Yeah, I kind of agree with you, lest you remember. I think that probably the systems for women to talk to each other or publicize or report sexual harassment or abuse is different in countries. So Anang said it used to be considered normal for a woman to slap a man across the face if he was disrespectful. Mm. Useless Strawberry says that in Norway, about 1 in 5 women have been sexually harassed or sexually assaulted or raped. Oh, interesting scam. Well, if you could find more about that and email it to me, that I'd be interested to read that. Scam says, I can't remember much, but the conclusion was like, if a body part needs to be covered, it's sexual, and when the part is shown, it means consent. Yeah, I've read about, I literally could not name any of the countries or tribes that this is involved in. Like, there's a lot of non-Western cultures where women would be fishermen on boats and not wear shirts, or women would be topless in many different working environments along with the men, and it was seen as no big deal. And then, like, colonizers, whether they were like from Portugal or Holland or France, in like, when did all the colonizing really happen? The 1700s came to those places, whether it was in Africa or Asia or North America, and then they saw it as like weird that these women were like putting their breast on display, whereas their men didn't think it was a big deal because they were used to it. 1492 was when all that shit started. Wow, it's a while ago. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. We've definitely gotten off topic. I think that I should schedule these to be shorter. I just made this one 1 hour because I wasn't sure. I liked the discussions we did before that were like less than half an hour. Okay. Honestly, I have a bit of a headache now. I don't know if I should read chapter 2. Like, I ate and drank a bunch of water and had tea and took like an Advil. But like, my whole body gets achy when I have my period. 53 to 77. Okay, so it's actually like 51 to 75. Yeah, 55 to 76. All right. All right. Let's do the reading. I don't know if we'll do the discussion, but let's do the reading, all right? I'll see you guys on the next stream in a second. Okay, bye.